Who says you need to be tall to dominate in football? Just look at Billy Bremner. Despite his shorter height, he played with such incredible skill and determination that he outshined even the biggest players on the field. His talent and leadership didn't just earn him respect, it made him one of the best in the game. In the end, he didn't just play for Leeds United, he led them as their captain, proving that ability matters way more than height. Bremner wasn't the tallest or the strongest player on the pitch, but you'd never know it by the way he played. He had a toughness about him that made him seem unstoppable. Whether it was a towering defender or a quick forward, it didn't matter. Bremner went in for every tackle like he had nothing to lose. His aggressive, no-nonsense style made him one of the hardest players to go up against, and he quickly earned a reputation as a relentless competitor. Of course, playing with that kind of intensity came with its fair share of drama. Bremner was never one to back down from a fight, and that led to plenty of on-field clashes. He wasn't afraid to stand up for himself, and sometimes that got him into trouble. He picked up quite a few bans over the years for his actions on the pitch, including a famous brawl with Kevin Keegan. The physical battles weren't just limited to match days either. His fiery personality carried over off the field as well. One of the biggest controversies of his career came in 1975, when he was handed a lifetime ban from the Scottish national team after an alleged nightclub fight. It was a moment that could have defined his legacy for the wrong reasons. But despite all the trouble and controversy, Bremner was far more than just a tough guy. He was a true leader. His passion, determination, and never-give-up attitude made him the perfect captain for Don Revie's legendary Leeds United team of the late 60s and early 70s. Under his leadership, Leeds became one of the most dominant teams in English football history. But as they say, all great journeys must come to an end, and sadly, Bremner's was no exception. In December 1997, he was rushed to the hospital after falling seriously ill with pneumonia. Despite efforts to help him recover, he passed away at his home in the small village of Clifton, near Doncaster. It was suspected that a heart attack had ultimately taken his life. Just like that, football lost one of its fiercest competitors and most passionate leaders. His passing was a huge loss, not just for Leeds United fans, but for the football world as a whole. 4 days later, his funeral was held in the Yorkshire village of New Edlington. It was attended by many of his former teammates, coaches, and other footballing figures who had played alongside or against him. Though he may be gone, his unforgettable moments on the pitch continue to live on. His journey with Leeds United began on December 12, 1959, when he signed his first professional contract just after turning 17. A little over a month later, on January 23, 1960, he made his first team debut in a 3-1 win against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. He played as an outside right alongside Don Revie, and, despite poor weather conditions, he impressed the Yorkshire Evening Post with his intelligence, accuracy, and unselfish play. That season, Leeds sold regular outside right Chris Crowe to Blackburn Rovers, opening the door for Bremner to secure his place in the team. Leeds had a tough time in the second division during the 1960-61 season. They lost to future rivals Liverpool in the opening match, and Bremner found himself dropped from the squad. Frustrated, he met with manager Jack Taylor to express his disappointment, eventually regaining his place. But as the team struggled in the lower half of the table, Taylor resigned in March 1961, and Don Revie took over as player manager. Revie's appointment was a turning point, especially for young talents like Bremner. He focused on youth development, bringing in future club legends such as Paul Reaney, Peter Lorimer, Terry Cooper, Eddie Gray, and Paul Madeley. Despite an offer from Hibernian that would have allowed Bremner to return to Scotland, Revie refused to let him go. Leeds barely avoided relegation in the 1961-62 season, with Bremner finishing as joint top scorer alongside Jack Charlton with 12 goals. But changes were coming. Revie retired from playing and became Leeds' full-time manager, bringing in Bobby Collins from Everton. a move that would shape the club's gritty, determined identity for years to come. In the 1962-63 season, Ravi started introducing more of the club's young players. Names like Norman Hunter and Paul Reaney made their debuts, and Leeds finished a respectable 5th in the second division. However, Bremner struggled with form and was dropped during a packed schedule caused by harsh winter conditions. Ravi decided to move him into central midfield, a decision that would prove to be a masterstroke. He also signed Johnny Giles from Manchester United, and together, Bremner and Giles formed one of the most formidable midfield partnerships in football history. With Bremner, Collins and Giles leading the way, Leeds secured promotion in the 1963-64 season as second division champions. However, their aggressive style of play earned them a bad reputation, with the Football Association labelling them the dirtiest team in the league. In the 1964-65 season, Leeds came heartbreakingly close to winning the First Division title, but lost out to Manchester United on goal average. They also reached the FA Cup final, where Bremner scored in extra time, but Liverpool secured a 2-1 victory. The following year, he took over the captaincy after Bobby Collins suffered a serious injury. Leeds finished second in the league again in 1965-66, but Bremner's leadership was already proving crucial. Over the next few seasons, Leeds started winning trophies. In 1968, they won both the League Cup and their first European title, the Intercities Fairs Cup. The following year, they finally clinched the league title, finishing 6 points ahead of Liverpool. After securing the championship with a 0-0 draw at Anfield, Bremner and his teammates received a warm ovation from the Liverpool fans, who chanted, "Champions, champions, champions!" Success continued in 1969-70, starting with a Charity Shield victory over Manchester City. Leeds chased a historic treble that season, but fell short in all 3 competitions, losing the league to Everton, the European Cup semi-final to Celtic, and the FA Cup final to Chelsea in a brutal 2-game battle. Despite this, Bremner was named the FWA Footballer of the Year. In the following seasons, Leeds remained competitive, winning the Intercities Fairs Cup again in 1971 and lifting the FA Cup in 1972 after beating Arsenal in the final. However, they missed out on a league and cup double just 2 days later when they lost to Wolves, handing the league title to Derby County. In 1973, they reached 2 more finals, the FA Cup, where they were stunned by second division Sunderland, and the European Cup Winners' Cup, which they lost to AC Milan in a match marred by controversial refereeing decisions. Determined to reclaim their status as the best team in England, Leeds stormed through the 1973-74 season, winning their second league title under Bremner's captaincy. He was instrumental, scoring 11 goals in all competitions. At the end of the season, he was honoured with a testimonial match against Sunderland. However, change was in the air. Don Revie left to become England manager, and Leeds made the controversial decision to hire Brian Clough. Bremner, who had a strong bond with Revie, was not a fan of Clough's methods. Clough's tenure lasted just 44 days before he was replaced by Jimmy Armfield. That season, Leeds reached the European Cup final, but their dreams were crushed by Bayern Munich in a match filled with contentious referee decisions. Angry Leeds fans rioted in response. As Leeds' golden generation started to break up, Bremner remained, leading a transitional team under Armfield, but injuries and age started catching up with him, and by 1976 he was no longer the force he once was. That September, he left Leeds to join Hull City for £25,000. At Hull, he took on a leadership role, even captaining the side, but injuries continued to plague him. Hull struggled, and after failing to secure a managerial role at the club, Bremner announced he would retire when his contract expired in June 1978. His playing days ended in disappointment as Hull were relegated, finishing last in the second division. However, his managerial days did not disappoint. He took charge of 4th Division side Doncaster Rovers in November 1978, inheriting a struggling team. Though results were mixed, he kept the club in the Football League and introduced changes like massages and a revamped canteen. With no budget for signings, he relied on youth players and free transfers, guiding Doncaster to promotion in 1981. Life in the 3rd Division was tough. Despite early promise, Doncaster narrowly avoided relegation in 1982, but couldn't escape the drop the following season. Bremner rebuilt, securing promotion again in 1984, but financial struggles forced the club to sell key players, keeping them in mid-table. In 1985, Leeds United brought him in to restore their past glory. He reinstated old traditions but made bold squad changes. Leeds remained inconsistent, though they reached the 1987 FA Cup semi-finals and the playoff final. After failing to win promotion, Bremner was sacked in 1988. A year later, he returned to Doncaster, leading them to a solid Football League trophy run and early promotion hopes in 1990. But as his form collapsed, Bremner resigned in November 1991, ending his managerial career. And that wraps up today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an update.